Afternoon. The questions in this session are going to be really ambitious, and I'm glad we've got such an experienced group of panellists to help us with that. Just to be precise, the question underlying this session is what's the solution to meeting everyone's expectations, really, from a consumer point of view? So that's not going to be too hard to answer, presumably. In a challenging market and environment, domestically and internationally, what we're really looking here to explore with these panellists is how we understand and address, the unique value proposition of the product, and then what the consumer wants and how to best understand and meet their expectations. So, on that note, if I could invite the three panellists to the stage, we've got Mr. Michael Finucan, Graham Daws, and Steve Meerwald. And while they're coming up, I'll give a quick introduction, although I'm sure most of you here know them very well, given they've been around and about for a long time. Michael is General Manager of International Markets for MLA. He's responsible for delivery of their international market strategy and oversees operations based in Singapore. He's got extensive experience across international markets, and not just in livestock, but across a number of agricultural commodities, which I think also provides some really useful insight. Graham, you'll all know as well that the pleasure for me of having Graham here is that I get to hear him from this side of the microphone rather than from the floor, which is more what I'm used to. He's, as you know, Managing Director of Emanuel, based here in Perth, over 30 years experience as a primary producer and exporter across all classes of livestock and multiple destinations around the world, of course. And Steve has been part of the meat and livestock industry for a similar period, based mostly in Perth, in Western Australia. Prior to establishing Harmony, he worked as a consultant, and before that in various roles with Wellard's Rural Exports. So the format really is we've got about 25 minutes or so, and then we'll have about 5 minutes at the end for questions from the audience. I've got a couple of just sort of starters for each of the panellists that hopefully will keep the discussion going, and we'll see where we end up. So I might start with Steve. I'm interested to hear a bit about practical experience and strategies that you and Harmony sort of think about as a grower and supplier of food to deliver value to customers, and understand what the customers want and how you deliver that value.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for the opportunity to participate. Graham usually gets the first word in and the last word, so it's a bit of a privilege to get in ahead of him. So the first part of that question really is about delivering value, and that's really beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Everybody wants the best product, but they also want the best price. In respect of the buyer, they want the cheapest price. In respect of the seller, they want to make the maximum profit. So it's a vexed question. It's a real challenge. In respect of meat products and food products in general, I think you can get a bit of a definition around what type of product you've got. It's more easily defined and probably more easily challenged and competitive. But this is a LIVEX conference, and there'd be plenty of people in this room that have either been the recipient of a sow's ear when they thought they were buying a silk purse, or were at the other end of the deal. And that's really a big challenge, because in the LIVEX industry, it can be quite subjective. So it's quite challenging dealing with livestock as opposed to a very easily prescribed product. And again, that gets back down to a trust and a relationship between the buyer and the seller. From our side, we're trying to work out in our business, and I have to say that I'm not saying this with any great deal of authority at this stage, because we're really a startup. Our business has been going for about 18 months. So we're exploring this, but I guess the challenge is to throw away what we've been doing for the last forever in terms of this type of trading in Australia, or from Australia, and to open our minds to the fact that we want to get away from just purely transactional business. We've heard it for a long time that the customer's always right, but traditionally we try to tell the customer what they need rather than listen to what their needs are. And again, I think that in this increasingly competitive world, unless we accept that challenge and understand what the customer is, and actually understand who the customer is, because in this long, in some cases too long supply chain, and we've heard discussion on that this morning, we think the customer is the next person in the transaction, but the customer is actually the consumer. So we've got to look at how we create value for everybody that needs to be in the supply chain, how it can be shared fairly, but we need to be able to look at and deal with the needs of the customer and get feedback from them as to what they need and be able to provide them with certainty in terms of quality and consistency from a supply point of view. And if everybody focuses on that in the supply chain instead of looking at the individual components, we should get equity, we should get fairness, and we should get a more efficient process that delivers our customers not only the quality products that they are looking for, and some have a different view to what quality is, but deliver them the price, to be able to deliver that at a price efficiently and economically that makes it sustainable for everyone.
Following on from that, just thinking about the ultimate consumer then, is do you notice for Harmony's sort of the range of products you're looking to work with or to develop, whether there are any particular factors that you already understand or you'd like to better understand as real drivers of that ultimate demand?
Look, at this stage in our business, I think what's really clear is that we don't understand. We thought we did. And I think that's a challenge for most people at the supply side of a supply chain, is maybe it should be rephrased as a demand chain so that we actually look at what the customer wants instead of what we traditionally and probably in most cases most easily produce.
Yeah, okay. Well, Graham, it might be useful at this point to hear from you on your perspective on those types of issues, particularly given your Middle East experience.
Thanks, Michael, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Look, I don't think it's rocket science what we do. Quite frankly, Australia has a very long-term history of continuous and reliable supply of livestock. We are disease-free compared to our competitors, so we supply the preferred product. But, as we have heard during this conference, we have many competitors. 1.8 million coming from the EU. I had no idea, quite frankly, that it was something in that order. There are millions of animals coming from the Horn of North Africa and from Uruguay. So Australia has a lot of competition. We don't have a monopoly market. We're very fortunate that the Arabian Gulf has stayed loyal to Australia as a sole supplier, but we can't rest on this. As I said before, we're the first product, and we have all this competition, but we do not have a level playing field with our competition. And that's something that we are working on and is work in progress. But the key issue through all this, quite frankly, is price. I've been in the industry way too long, and for 40 plus years, it has always been price. And I don't believe that is unlikely to change in the future. I think that very few markets will pay for quality in the sort of product that they request. I think that we have some real challenges ahead, and that is that we have to remain competitive in this market with all our worldwide competition. I think we're in a good shape at the moment because high prices are prevalent, and I believe that owing to the strong demand, that high prices will remain. I think that The fall in production that we have heard about today, or the fall in numbers, is a challenge that we do have to deal with. However, I think that there are two ways of trying to assist that, and that would be to clearly the price point that we need to offer to producers must be at a price that encourages them to continue to produce and provide the raw material that we supply. This will, at the moment, is certainly assisted by the fantastic wool market, and quite frankly, the yields in a sheep enterprise are quite outstanding at the moment. So I think the other encouraging part of our industry is the investment that is now happening overseas in all our markets. There's new state-of-the-art vessels being converted. There are state-of-the-art feedlots and state-of-the-art abattoirs in many, many countries. These are all shortly to come online, and these investments are made only with a lot of confidence from the importers that this industry is going to go on for 15, 20 years. These are the sorts of hundreds of millions that are being invested, and they're not short-term investments, they're long-term investments.
Have you seen anything, Graham, over the years that has in some way impacted or at least shifted that price dominance, and not to supersede it, but to at least shift where it might sit, so that you might have certain things that certain markets are interested in that help everybody push for either to sustain prices or to help to sort of provide a real floor to them or push them up a bit? Or is it really just to what extent is it not a race to the bottom, but just a matter of meeting the competitiveness of other markets?
Yeah, there has been a shift over the years. I mean, once we were just shipping the old heavy weathers, but that's gone. We don't have those anymore. We have young sheep, and to fill these ships, which are now the size of 80,000, we have to buy every species of animal that is available, from lambs to young wethers, hoggets, and to the remaining heavy weathers. So we've been able to source those. I don't think there's been a ship go out yet that hasn't been filled. And plus, if WA is short of numbers, we also have the eastern states to drag on to keep our customers in continuous supply of what they want.
And have you noticed in different markets any factors that sit alongside or a price that are dramatically different between markets, where when you're thinking about how you manage your forward planning for exports and the animals you're going to get over there, that you need to keep in mind?
Look, unfortunately, I don't see any market that is prepared to pay any sort of premium, so they're completely price driven, and we have to remain competitive. And as I say, we don't have a level playing field at the moment because our cost of compliance is, as we heard earlier, it's the 25 million, which was a study done by Ernst & Young. It's not something that we dreamt up. So we have this $25 million compliance on our heads in order to be able to export. And I am not talking animal welfare. That is a given. That is our number one priority. But the regulation around that to satisfy our regulators is quite inappropriate, and is something that we are trying to work on to put ourselves in a better position to be competitive with the worldwide market.
And in light of that, Steve, has your experience been similar, that there are other factors, but really if you're not competing on price, you're in trouble?
Yeah, look, I think that was my opening comment, that we've got to be competitive. But I think increasingly, and as the value of our product increases, and that's not just because of Brand Australia, but globally protein prices are increasing, that working with and developing relationships with customers so that they can appreciate that by investing slightly more, not only in infrastructure, but in the quality of the animals that they import, they actually get a better result. It's not you put in more, but you get more back out. And that's really the maturing of an industry from a commodity trade to something different. Now, everybody's going to have a view as to what the something different is and how valuable it is to them, but I think that there are a lot of markets becoming more sophisticated and open to being educated to understand those opportunities, because that will grow their business and grow their brand.
And from an MLA perspective, finally, Michael, that sort of tying that together, because I'm really interested in your perception on the things that really drive both value, the value proposition, and the understanding and reality of consumer expectation.
Yeah, so from an MLA perspective, we do a lot of work on understanding the consumer and sort of leveraging off what Steve said. You've got to understand your consumer and the market to meet that market, firstly. So, you know, Australia's in a unique position. We have a diverse production system, whether it's cattle or sheep, and you can source from different areas and get different products, and we're able to service a whole range of global markets, from, you know, box beef through to a live animal, and we're able to meet a whole range of consumers around the world. So, you know, a live animal going to a wet market for an Indonesian consumer, right through to the premium end with, you know, lamb racks on top-end restaurants in the, you know, Shanghai bun that are, you know, high-priced meals. So we have that ability to do all that, but it doesn't come easy, and it's hard work, and you can't do it without that research on the consumer. What drives their perceptions about Australia or the food they're eating, and is it a trust thing? Is it just a freshness? Is it a, you know, feeding their family, nutrition? So understanding that's really key. And that's what's going to keep Australia successful, by breaking that down and targeting those segments and finding the people that are willing to pay more. And there are people who are willing to pay more for a disease-free animal or a premium steak they know that's come through a trusted system.
Yeah, and to the extent that you've been able to research that, you know, over the years, you know, are there trends? Do you think that there are particular markets where there's a different focus, for example?
Yeah, I think generalising the markets is hard.
It's
so
not the way.
Every market, and you know, in some of the presentations yesterday, we heard, you know, Sarah was talking about insights, but the segmentation of the markets is key. So, you know, China is not one market; it's many markets. But neither is Japan or Korea. They've got subsets of that market. Indonesia is an incredibly complex market, and you know, so. Yeah, there's trends. There's definitely, you know, as people's wealth increases, they definitely shift from base proteins to a red meat protein, and you see that consumption. But they're discerning consumers. They don't, you know, they're making decisions on pork, chicken, and beef. Beef's more expensive. It does have a premiumness of beef and lamb. Yep. It's seen as good and healthy, and it's got a status symbol in some countries. And you know, capturing that and, you know, getting them to make that decision of, I'm going to, you know, spend that extra bit of money for something that makes me feel good, gives my children nutrition. So some of those common trends about, you know, nutrition, health, welfare. The more developed the market, say the US or Europe, you know, environment, welfare, those factors come into play.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a whole plethora across the segments, from developing to very developed markets, on what trends are driving consumption.
And is that really the focus now of the research, is on looking at better understanding the segments?
Exactly, yeah. So we really spend a lot of time on segmenting the countries, segmenting the retail or food service players, and then segmenting the consumers in those sectors. Is it a young, dynamic Chinese female who wants to share a meal with their friends and take a photo of it so everyone can see that she spent $200 on a steak? Or is it someone just wanting a base protein for their family in Indonesia to, you know, build their kids up to be stronger? So you've got to understand that, yeah.
Well, we're getting to the point where we'll throw over to the audience, and there's a roving microphone or microphones somewhere. But before I do, was there anything, Graham or Steve, that you wanted to say about that sort of within market?
Look, yeah, within market, some of the clients want specialty products. They might want Dorpers or something, but it's very small market. And when you're sending 80,000 shipment, you might just get a small section of that they're looking for a special product and something that they can market at a higher premium, but it's very small compared to the bulk. But I think what is encouraging also is that the fact that there are emerging markets and very, very serious ones that are going to put greater demand on our numbers, and it could only be better for the producers.
Is that really the differentiation between live export and, boxed meats, for example? You don't have the same ability to chop and change product and value add it. It's much broader categories of product that you're providing in much larger volumes.
Look, we supply what the client wants. We've had a lot of competition from chilled meat, but there's room in the market for everybody, and the demand, the insatiable demand for livestock does not wane. It's going on, and I believe that the prices we're seeing today, which are very good for the producer, are going to be maintained because the flock's down, demand is up. It can only remain like that going forward.
I think we will throw over to the audience because we're a little tight on time. So if there's anyone who'd like to pose some questions, just make yourself known however you'd like to, and there's one at the front.
Terry Sim from Sheep Central. Within the current dynamics of price and supply for sheep and lambs, is there any room for the slaughter market into China for sheep or lambs, mutton or?
Sorry, was that the slaughter market in China?
For sheep.
Okay. Well, I think the protocol that was signed recently is completely uncommercial. I believe that there is a demand there, but once again we get back to price, and the price that we would have to go through to quote them based on the current protocol would make them pay way in excess of what anywhere else in the world would do. So I don't think it may get off in a small, or start up in a small way, but it would take a big shift to be competitive with what other markets around the world were paying.
Just got to add, it's having that slaughter protocol is a great opportunity, but it's an incredibly competitive market, that China sheep meat market. There's a lot of sheep in China. There's a lot of sheep that come down from Inner Mongolia, and you see the demand. If there's a big flow of livestock from Mongolia, demand from imported meat product just drops right off. It's quite a volatile, price-sensitive market, the sheep meat market in China. But it is growing, and it will become more sophisticated. It's a great market, but currently the Chinese consumer doesn't understand a lot about how to cook meat outside of skewers or hot pot. And so right across that spectrum, I think there's an opportunity to work on that in China.
I think if I could just add, again, we saw the cattle protocol signed several years ago after several years of work, and it's taken a while to mature into some small trial shipments and then small commercial shipments. And we all see great opportunity down the track with growing cattle demand. I think that the protocol and the growth in demand within China for sheep meat will follow a similar path. It might take some years to happen. We know that Chinese typically negotiate complicated protocols, which is at their cost because there are other countries competing for these products. So at the same price, they'll go to a market that's less complicated and less costly. But it's a foundation that I think will lead us to some significant sheep export demand in the future.
Thank you for that. Now, I can't see much from up here, so I'll need help from whoever's on the floor. So if there's any other questions. I think we're good, unless I'm missing something obvious.
Amy down the front.
Oh, another one down the front?
George, yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you.
Oh, George, is it?
That's Terry again.
So can I ask a similar question for the likelihood of if even negotiations to re-establish the Saudi trade are successful, will that also potentially suffer the same fate due to our low supply and high prices for mutton and lamb?
No, look, everybody has been working on the resumption of the Saudi market for some time. There's been recently progress made. However, it's going to take a little while before everything's in place for that market to move. But and also Australia has to be competitive when it does resume. I'm quite optimistic that we're heading in the right direction. I don't think it'll happen, for a little while yet, because everybody's got to get their ducks in the row to meet SCAS and to have both sides comfortable with a resumption. But the potential there is fantastic, and that's one of the countries that has modernised their processing and modernised their feedlots. They've signed on to OIE, so we're not asking anything additional of them. But, they're getting a massive supply now from all over the world, and we do have an expensive product. However, when that market resumes, it could only be for the producer's benefit.
Okay. Thank you, Graham, Steve and Michael. I really appreciate your time today and the discussion. And I think that's probably, if anyone's got any further questions, given we're on a fairly strict timeline, I'm sure no one will mind being bailed up afterwards. So thank you again, and enjoy the rest of the conference.